LitRPG Podcast. This is episode number 68 of the podcast, and I am Ramon Mejia here to bring you the latest LitRPG news, reviews, and of course author interviews. And this week I have 9 new LitRPG reviews just for you. In new release and reviews this week, I'll be reviewing 9 new titles, including Gong and Chalice, which is going to be Fayroll Book 4. After that, it'll be Escape from Hell, a LitRPG adventure. Let's see, Kingdom of Heaven Book 2. After that, it'll be Dembo's Ditty, a LitRPG Gamebook. After that, it'll be Blood Rain. Then, it will be Battle for Mesrath, a LitRPG adventure, Grottos and Vixens, Alpha Elf Book 1. After that, it'll be Extraction Protocol, a LitRPG Space Marine adventure. Then, it'll be Total Immersion, a Dark World. After that, it'll be Venia Online, a LitRPG Saga. And finally, Infinite Reality, Daggerland Online, Novel 1, a LitRPG adventure. So, there we go, folks. We're beginning our show, though, of course, with LitRPG news. And a LitRPG news, we're beginning with a quick announcement that Adventures in Terror Book 2 Escape audiobook is out. So this is the second audiobook in this series. I've only written 2 books in that series, so it kind of makes sense. Book 1 and Book 2 are narrated by the same wonderful narrator, Jill Smith. I'll play a little bit of a clip for you, so you can, remember what the audiobook narrator sounds like. But if you're a fan of the first one, you're going to enjoy the second one as well. At least I did, but I'm kind of biased. So there you go.
Do not risk your life unnecessarily. As always, you have whatever support Rex, Keynes, and I can offer you. Please take care of yourself. It would sadden me greatly to lose you. Liliandra.
I finish reading the message for the 3rd time and sigh. While I appreciate the words of consolement from Liliandra, someone that's become like a second mother to me, I have a hard time taking her advice to heart. She wasn't there. She didn't witness the citizens of Restrian chained up and hauled away as slaves. She didn't see the devastation of the kobold's home, the broken furniture, the wrecked tables, the personal items the Emperor soldiers tossed about when looking for the kobold's treasure. She didn't hear Vrax's keening when he found the hatchery broken into, and every innocent kobold egg crushed.
Also in LitRPG news, we have the results of the LitRPG Awards for it's called the 2nd Annual Wizards and Warriors Choice Awards. This one was sponsored by Alan Kong and the LitRPG Facebook group. There were 4 categories in the award choices. One for Best Series, one for Best Book, Best LitRPG New Author, and Best Railroad Story. The winner of the Wizard Award, which is for the Best Series, LitRPG Series, is The Land. For the Warrior Award, or the Best Single Individual Book, is Awaken Online Catharsis. And for the Best New LitRPG Voice, Dungeonborn. And then for the Best Railroad Story, Arcane Emperor. So congratulations to everybody who won. You can now put that on your book. Okay. Also, speaking of DragonCon, had some wonderful DragonCon experiences this year. Just got back this week from the con in Atlanta, Georgia. And I gotta say, it was absolutely amazing to see the support for the community, to get a chance to talk to other LitRPG authors. I mean, I've talked to them via computer and webcam and whatever for author interviews, but to talk to them in person, hang out, have a good time. It was very much a very fulfilling dream of my own personally. And I'm just sad that not more people were able to make it to the con and hang out with us, because it was a ton of fun. The LitRPG booth that we had did great. Authors that were selling books there, signed copies, series, actual physical copies of the books. James Hunter, Michael Chatfield, Jeffrey Pocklenlog, Blaze Corbin. They were there the majority of the time selling their books, of course. James Hunter actually also had some panels he was doing at DragonCon as well. Jeff Hayes was also there promoting his audiobooks and his narration team, but also telling folks about LitRPG, so it was very nice to do so. Also, most of the LitRPG novels that these guys brought sold out very quickly. By Sunday, a lot of the guys were already sold out, so good job on everybody. This kind of shows the even people who didn't know about LitRPG just gave them like a quick sales pitch of, video game novel or RPG mechanics in a fantasy and sci-fi story. That was enough to pull them in and get them on their journey into LitRPGdom. So it was nice to hopefully welcome new members of the community to our addictive book series. A lot of fans also stopped at the booth, had a really fun time talking to them. The authors in the genre also stopped by. Robert Bevan said hello. Dakota Kraut came by. Travis Bagwell, Luke Chmalenko, Kevin McLaughlin, and some other guys who I probably can't remember at the moment. But it was also nice to get a chance to talk to them, even if it's only for a couple minutes, or to hang out afterwards, for a drink or some food or something. The LitRPG Podcast, me, also went to the LitRPG Gala, which was hosted in Atlanta at a local bar. It was fun to talk to some of the fans that showed up there, and also the LitRPG community members like our mods, and just people who contribute on the Facebook and social media groups. Awesome to talk to everybody and just kind of, get the vibe like, oh, these are actually real people. They aren't just, faces and profile pictures on the internet. They're really cool to hang with, and anybody who I actually had a chance to meet, it was definitely an honor to talk to you and to kind of geek out with you about this thing that we both kind of enjoy and love. So thanks. I personally just had an amazing time. I want to thank everybody who came out to support the LitRPG community, and hopefully this is something again we can do next year at the Dragon Con. Hopefully it'll be bigger, we'll have a little more organized, since we'll have more than a week to get it all put together, and more people can come by the booth and hang out, and we can do more things together. That'd be really cool. So there you go. So that's LitRPG news. We'll move on to some LitRPG novels that came out this week, and boy, are there a lot. There are about 9 new LitRPG titles that came out just this week between the last podcast and this one that I just, I don't know if I'm going to get to them all, but I'm going to do my best to try, including Mecha, a LitRPG adventure, Arcane Survivalist, an Apocalyptic fantasy LitRPG. In addition to that, another short story by Robert Bevan, Pixie Dix. Then Lewd Paladin, Dread of Night. This is the book 2 in that series. Also, You're Not Allowed to Die, the 20-sided I series, book 1. Also, Bushido Online, The Battle Begins, a LitRPG Saga. Also, World Seed Endgame. I'm really looking forward to that personally. Happy to maybe get a conclusion to it, I'm not sure. Also, Gamer Girl in the Orc King's Harem. I believe that one's a little racy, a little bit of sex in there. Also, Legends of Titherius, Book 4 of Kylie's story, Legends of Titherius, Book 4, the long-awaited 4th book in that series. So there you go. Also, a few new LitRPG audiobooks that came out this last week, including Adventures in Terra Book 2 Escape. That's the one I was talking about previously. But also, The Builder's Sword, the Legendary Builder, Book 1. The Veil of Three Wolves, Elements of Wrath Online, Book 2. Fayroll, More Than a Game. That's the first book in that series. And The Skull Throne, Kingdom of Heaven, Book 1. Again, we're reviewing Book 2 in the podcast today. In upcoming LitRPG, this is just where I read off the titles that are coming up in the next couple months. You can skip ahead if you like, but there are some new titles that are on this list, including Immersion Book 9 out on September the 9th in a couple days. Space Knight out on September the 11th. This is a new sci-fi LitRPG from Michael Scott Earl, so I'm looking forward to the combination of sci-fi and LitRPG from that author. Also, The Artificer, a Viridian Gate DLC novel out on September the 17th. On the 22nd of September is going to be Persephone Falling. On the 25th of September, it'll be Starter Zone, The Revelation Chronicles Book 1. On September the 27th, it'll be The Laboratory, a Futuristic Dungeon Core. On the 28th of September, it'll be On the Lost Continent Alter Gamebook 2. On October the 4th, it'll be Desert Runner. On the 10th of October, it'll be Amarillo Book 10. 10, get it? On October the 11th, it'll be A Game with No Rules, which is the Perimeter Defense Book 4. On October the 16th, Fantasy Online Polynia. That's the second book in the Fantasy Online series. On the 16th of October as well is going to be The Wizard Dungeon Core Book 1. On the 8th of November, Desertborn Paternia Online Book 2. On November the 11th, Amarillo Book 11. On the 16th of November, Shatterlands 3. And last but not least, the 4th book in the Mirror World series is out on December the 4th. The pre-order just went up for the Twilight Obelisk. If you're looking forward to that, you can go pre-order now. So there you go. On to new releases and reviews. And the new releases and reviews, we're beginning with Gong and Chalice, Fayroll Book 4. The first two of these reviews are going to be a little short because they're already series that are relatively well established. So if you're not into them by now, you're probably not going to get into them. So hopefully you enjoy them. This is written by A. Vasiliev. It is 392 pages. It is $8. It was originally published at $8.20. It is currently $6.90. There's a bit of controversy around the pricing, and I think the publishers heard the audience outcry, and they quickly dropped that by about $35, but $1.35. So it's currently $6.95. It is not available on Kindle Unlimited, which is a big thing for a lot of people because even at $6.95, it's kind of an expensive price tag. And I'll give you a quick summary of this. Harrington or Hagen, the main character, is heading south to finish the last of the Riot Quest. Together, he joins up with the Free Company mercenaries, and just like that, he feels like he's back in the army. He goes on adventures, he does some quest stuff, and eventually finishes the quest. That's kind of the story. There's a lot of other things in there that I'll get to in a second. But basically, coming down to whether or not this is worth it for you to purchase, it kind of depends on how much you really love this series. If you liked book 4? Yeah, book 4 in the series. If you like book 3 and you like book 2, this is kind of the same. The theme is different. In this case, it's him in the army doing a bunch of mercenary quests, popping in and out. There's also some guild intrigue here. But if you didn't like book 3, if you didn't like book 2, this is not going to satisfy you magically. There is a wrap-up of that Dryad series quest here, but it is, again, it's at the very end, which it has been for the last book 2 and 3. And so if you're looking for something like super amazing, awesome, that's going to just drag you in, this is not it. For me, at the $8 price tag, which is what I actually paid for it, because I got it as soon as it came out, totally not worth the bucks. $6.95, which is about $7. I don't know that I would have bought it at that price tag for what I got out of the novel, because again, most of the stuff is nothing revolutionary. It feels like at its core a repetition of what happened in book 3, in that the main character goes on adventures, he gets some stuff, gets some new items, completes some new quests, makes alliances, maybe makes a few new enemies. There is, again, more guild intrigue in this novel, but there's nothing so new that you just have to pick this up. You just have to know that he finishes the Dryad quest, and now there's a new set quest that will be starting in book 5 that has a little more of a divine aspect, but again, that's going to be recapped in book 5, and I'm hoping in book 5 that just gets amazing again, because for me, this was definitely not super amazing, unfortunately. Some new things that are in this novel, if it's something that you are interested in bringing into, again, there's the army theme, there's guild intrigue, there's some backstory about the game AI, and there's some IRL, real life storyline with Harrington having to do with his girlfriend, sister, someone he knows in the game. But other than that, there's not a ton of new stuff here. I mean, there's new quests. All the quests and adventures are all very new, but like, there's nothing like thematically. There's nothing like oh, I have to read this. Not for me, at least. For me, it gets a score of 6 out of 10. And I'm definitely hoping that in book 5 we pick up some new exciting things because of that new quest line coming up. Okay. On to our next one, Escape from Hell, Liberty Adventure, Kingdom of Heaven, Book 2, written by J.A. Cipriano and Connor Cresley. So there we go. I will see, 306 pages, $3.99, available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll read you the author's description. This shadow has taken control, and Heart on the Kingdom of Heaven's last hope has found himself trapped somewhere else entirely. After falling victim of the evil Lord Shadow's manipulations, college dropout turned reluctant gaming hero Iron Jack has been trapped in the much fabled but seldom visited lower levels of what was once his favorite video game. In a dangerous world where the worlds are different and nothing is as it seems, Iron Jack must look for a way back to the world he's sworn to protect and the people he's come to care about, including the hottest angel chick in any realm. When he finds his old crew, the Avenging Angels there, he thinks he's got a leg up on the Shadow and his dastardly plans, but Iron Jack will soon find that things aren't as simple as he hoped, and even a world as complicated as Kingdom of Heavens has a dark underbelly. Welcome to hell, Iron Jack. Hope you survive the experience. So there you go. Again, 306 pages, $3.99, available on Kindle Unlimited. As I said, the beginning of this book has a nice summary of the events of book 1, so you don't necessarily have to go read that book to pick this one up. It reminds you how the main character was tricked into and pushed into lower levels of the sub-levels of this world, essentially hell. And right from the get-go, he meets up with an old guild member, and he's given the chance to essentially get escape out of Helgard if he kills her, not knowing the consequences, essentially, which is a common theme from the last book, in that the main character rushes into situations without thinking first or getting information, and that leads him into trouble. So this is very much thematically appropriate for the continuation of that story. But he chooses not to, of course, otherwise the novel would be very short. Instead, he tries to help this very abrasive female team member find the rest of their guild so that they can all escape together. Because if any one of the guild members dies, all their characters are trapped there. Not like the main character, who's actually trapped there in the game world. If any one of his guild members dies, just their character, not their actual soul or whatever it is there. And that's kind of the storyline, basically. Now, for me, there were things about the story that I liked. There are things that I think stopped it from being good for me. The things that I liked about the story, essentially, the guild stuff, the camaraderie, the banter between the main character and his guildmates. That was really good. It actually had a lot of levels of familiarity, a lot of good backstory of the main character, who he is outside of the game, and who he is as a player. Because in book one, it was basically him and the demon and the angel, and fighting stuff. And so you don't really have that same amount of old school friendship that you would have had, that you do get in book two with his guildmates, because apparently there is, of course, a long-standing relationship between them all. A lot of the plot, unfortunately, feels forced in the novel. Everything from the overly antagonistic female character in the guild called Glitter, to why the main character just can't tell his guildmates why he's stuck in the game world and that he's stuck there. There's also actually a retconning that happens in the story to advance the plot and give the main character the ability to absorb banshee powers and attempt to get back up to the main world. And there are plot twists in this main story towards the end that just really feel forced and just jammed in there. But some people still enjoy the story. It's not that I didn't enjoy the story, it's just like so many things so forced and not resolved in the main character. I'm just like, this is not particularly super enjoyable for me. It wasn't bad, it's not good though, and so it's right in the middle. For me, it gets a score of 6 out of 10. And another thing about this is that a lot of the RPG mechanics in book one disappear in book two, and it's kind of waved away as like, oh, that's just part of the level, part of the hell level, and so that again kind of dropped it down for me. So again, score of 6 out of 10 from me for the story. There you go. Okay, next story, Dembo's Ditty, a LitRPG gamebook by Balagun Orjintadi. Okay, this is 222 pages, $2.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll read you the author's description of the novel. You are Dembo Naji, a Marakoti, a griot, but you weren't always. You were once a struggling DJ in the near future. Home for you was a tiny efficiency in the Pittsburgh Projects, a 50-story housing development in the crime-ridden, ultra-violent area of Pittsburgh in southwest Atlanta, Georgia, until you finally saved up enough credits to purchase the URE, the Universal Reality Engine, the world's most popular gaming console, and you decided to play Kikaji, the world's most popular MMORPG on it. Now you're stuck in the world of Kikanja and looking for a way out. All isn't bad though. You're in love with Joni, a beautiful and brilliant princess. But in order to win her hand in marriage, you have first to win over her father, who demands his daughter marry someone of great fame and fortune. Becoming the official Maroki of Yoromosa, the hero of heroes, is the best way to do it. The problem is, Yori's life is fraught with dangers. This is a lot. This is basically a game book or a choose-your-adventure novel. The author describes it that way, but with cool game stats, weapons, skills, and funky spell songs to choose from. So there you go. The plot that the author describes is technically accurate. Unfortunately, I don't see a great ton of it. Again, the author describes this as a choose-your-adventure story. He's written over 16 novels and game books, according to the back of the novel. I read Choose Your Adventures when I was really like before computers became super popular and RPGs were on there a lot. There was a form of RPG progression in novel form where it was Choose Your Adventure books, and I understood from reading those that this was always going to be a very difficult book to see done well. And anybody who's ever read a Choose Your Adventure novel or an app or whatever knows that it's a very difficult process because it's almost like computer programming and mapping out all the particular narrative branches, which we'll get into in a second. Okay, the Choose Your Adventure or Gamebook format, as the author calls it, is tended to make you feel as if you're in the story and that your choices change the story as you go along. They usually do this by presenting with a series of choices, then telling you to go to a certain page or a place to see the results of that choice within the context of the novel. That choice leads to other choices, which lead to still more, and the result is usually a complex network of branching narratives that can result in multiple story paths and even different endings. And so, on the surface, this sounds really cool. Nostalgically, it is. Computer games, unfortunately, kind of made this novel obsolete, or at least moved the medium to the digital realm, where the number of choices possible wasn't limited by an actual physical page count. There are even apps on any digital store that you can do the same thing, including a series I really enjoy, Sorcery, which is produced by Steven Jackson, Lord of the Rings director. In those apps, they keep track of all your stats, your attacks, damage rolls during a fight, health maniples, etc. So you don't have to keep a little journal to remember your choices, which is what I did for the novel. And for me, this novel began as, I was really excited to read this, to be honest. It was a very nostalgic trip into my childhood. I remember buying new books like this, adventure novels, getting notepads and dice and flipping pages until my character died and then starting back at some branching point. And that was fun. And so the beginning portion of reading this novel was very exciting for me. It was like, yay, I'm a kid again. I get to, do a choose your adventure novel. Unfortunately, there are issues with that type of format that you kind of forget in that nostalgia that were definitely brought up in this particular novel. The foremost being that this format is outdated. And that's probably the biggest issue with the novel. Also, unlike a physical book, which a lot of those novels were, there's no easy way to skip to your choices here. When I was reading this, I was expecting like a hyperlink or some way to send me to my choice, like by, okay, 3 choices, press a button or press a link, and it skips ahead of that portion of it. Instead, in the novel, you had to, flip through or swipe through all the possible choices until you got to the one that you chose, and you couldn't help but read those other choices, kind of ruining any possibility of replay or reread, which was kind of sad for me. Now, additionally, aside from the couple places where your choices will end the story and take you to start over, most of the story moves in a fairly linear manner. And I mean by that in other choose your adventure novels or apps, whatever the case is, the choices you make can really branch you out into some very different paths. Go to a castle, go to a marsh, save the princess, you go fight the witch or whatever it is. Like, you can have very different storylines all in one novel, like almost like a series of short stories possibilities. That is not the case in this novel. It's very one story, and you go through it. And there may be some branching short adventures, but eventually you come back to that main storyline and you continue on exactly as the author has described it, which makes it very linear and not very choose your adventure like to me. Additionally, your stories and your choices don't really matter as much as I would have liked to. We'll talk about the rules for a second. There is a series of really complex rules in the novel that take up almost the first 5% of the story, and I would explain to you, except that they don't matter. None of that matters. The narrative of the story and all the choices you make, all the outcomes of combat and battle are predetermined for every combat choice, unfortunately. The novel even includes like a section of skills you can choose. They give you better rolls or better percentage choices of succeeding in something. But again, none of that is ever taken into account in the actual story, which is kind of sad to me, because there's a lot of possibility here of making something cool and interesting and incorporating in a literary story, and it just kind of wasn't ever fulfilled. And I'll give you an example of this. At one point, the main character is tasked with getting ingredients for breakfast, about the 17% mark. He's given 2 choices, go hunt for giant clams or go hunt for seagull eggs. And each leads to combat, and there's, sub-choices on how to fight, magic, music, weapons, whatever the case is. And each one of those choices has results that might end the fight or give you more combat choices. Now, regardless, they end basically in 2 ways. Kill the clam, you get a bigger pearl, sell it for money, or you escape the clam and no reward, or you kill the clam, no pearl, extended combat, etc. And you kind of get the same results for the seagull legs. Like, you have a couple basic endings, but none of it really matters, because at the 27 mark, which is when all this ends, again, a full 10% of the novel is just this one battle, choices. When you go back to the main storyline again, it says you take the breakfast stuff to the cook, and the story basically continues all like nothing's happened. And that to me is, again, I understand the technical responsibilities and complexities of doing this kind of thing, so I understand how that happens, but it's kind of ruins the purpose of a choose your adventure novel, in that you get different outcomes based on your choices, you know what I mean? And so that was just unfortunate to me, and that happens for most of the story. Like, no matter what branching paths, choices you make, you always end up back at that same storyline, and it goes through, and so it feels less free will than other choose your adventure novels or abstract games that I played, unfortunately. Now, there are some things in the novel that I really did like. I don't want you to think that nothing in this novel is good. It's just that the format basically sucks, and it basically ruins what would have otherwise been a rather good story. What I really loved about the story, most of it happens in the beginning of the novel, is the world building. The author paints a picture of a vibrant African-inspired world with unique social structures and traditions, and there's some very unique comment choices in the story, that you can use music as an option, basically almost like a bardish in like your casting spells or casting abilities, but it's very like music oriented, and I think it's very unique to the culture of the novel, which I would have loved to have explored and seen more of. And what was given was absolutely fascinating and interesting, and I loved going into a world that I had never seen before. Just like I love going to fantasy and sci-fi worlds, this was definitely a culture that I had never experienced, so I would have loved to have spent more time there. Unfortunately, I don't like this particular format. I would have loved to spend more time in this novel. I would love to see another novel in this series come out, just not as a choose your adventure or a game book or whatever it's going to be called. So for me, because of the formatting mostly of the novel, it gets a score of 5 out of 10. So there you go. Okay, on to our next book, Blood Rain, LitRPG Series Book 1, written by Elliot Burns. Okay, this is 82 pages, 99 cents, available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll read you the author's description. When the king of Cold Creek dies without an heir, the search for a new king begins. Enter Coden, an apprentice to be a tanner. He's never expected to do about too much, so he's surprised learning that he is an old king's illegitimate son. That makes him the next in line to the throne. Coden must learn to be a king. He has to grow his kingdom and improve his skills, while making sure a web of conspiracy spun by hidden enemies doesn't trap him. Okay, this is a very easy review. This novel is I'm not sure what it is, to be honest, because each little section of the story has a problem, and it gives the reader 3 choices. And then there's a pre-written decision and outcome. So it's almost like a choose your own adventure novel where the choices have already been made, and it's just put into this short story. For me, I'm not sure what this is. Whether it's an experimental format, or if it's a choose your own adventure novel where the choices have already made for you. I don't know. The author gives you no indication as to what it is. He doesn't say it all. There's no like preface that says in there. There's nothing like the author description. It just is. And what at least the last novel I reviewed told you what it was going to be, and it gives you plenty of detailed explanation about game mechanics and what this novel is and what this concept is. This novel does none of that. There are sort of game mechanics in there, but none of the characters are aware of them. They literally don't matter to the story at all. So for me, not a LitRPG, not a very good novel to me. I'm not really sure what it is, but it gets a score of 4 out of 10. So there you go. Okay, next, Battle for Mesrath, a LitRPG adventure, Grottos and Vixens, Alpha Elf Book 1, written by Amanda Blightley. Okay, this one is 66 pages, $2.99, available on Kindle Unlimited. I'm not going to even bother reading the author description. Real simple review. This is just a sex story in a fantasy world under the guise of a VR theme. There's a couple of character sheets in there, but no real game mechanics. There's barely any story besides the sex stuff. Not LitRPG, which is what it says it is. Gets a score of 2 out of 10. So there you go. Okay, on to something actually I really enjoyed. The next one is Extraction Protocol, LitRPG Space Marine Adventure, Omicron, Sector, Book 1. So really long titles. written by A.M. Reynolds. Okay, this one is 49 pages, 99 cents, available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll read you the author's description. Aaron and his friends run missions in the Omicron sector, the latest full immersion MMO, for fun and profit. Their most recent run was to be a simple extraction of a few scientists, or so they thought. Finding the labs abandoned upon arrival, Captain Aaron Taylor and his fire team must face the dark secrets that await them inside the research facility. Do they have what it takes, or will they succumb to the perils of the game? This was really nice. It is a short story, so it's a little pricey for 99 cents. It is available in Kindle Unlimited, though. I personally, I got a review copy from the author. I went and purchased the novel as soon as I finished it, though. I did enjoy it that much. And I always want to support new authors coming in the genre. This is a short story, but it has a nice Mass Effect Halo vibe, balancing sci-fi action and RPG mechanics, and it does it really well. There are character sheets, there are sci-fi abilities, skills, and weapons descriptions, so there is some RPG stuff, even if it is within 49 pages of a short story, and the plot is exactly as the author describes, and I really add more to it without spoiling anything for you guys, but there's lots of nice action. It's a very action-oriented novel with a nice sci-fi twist that I think has very interesting potential in future stories. I had a good time reading it, and I can't really say more than that. I mean, I enjoyed it. It gets a score of 7 out of 10 from me. So there you go. Okay, next, Total Immersion, Dark World, a LitRPG adventure. This one is 279 pages, $3.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. So yeah, that's always nice. Okay, I'll read you the author's description. Legendary Elora online gamer, the Seeker kills and loots Sid, destroying all of Sid's progression of the game. Infuriated, Sid makes it his personal mission to exact a humiliating revenge on the Seeker for the sakes of all the players in Elora. He succeeds after months of planning, but soon he finds himself in a secret part of Elora online called the Dark World, where he can feel everything in the game with all of his senses and can't access Elora or the real world anymore. As he uncovers the dark mysteries of the world while being stalked by the Seeker, his old nemesis, who also has a new race and class, he makes unusual friendships who help him claim his summons for Mystic. That's what it says. With each summon he wins impossible battles, he gains more power and unlocks the secrets of the Dark World, of what the Dark World really is, what Elora online is, and why he's there. The hits make him bleed, the deaths are painful, and he must defeat Seeker once again, and this time it'll take more than a year of planning, it'll take a worldwide war. So there you go. Some very ambitious descriptions from the author from that synopsis there. For me, the game mechanics in the novel, solid, great. There's some very interesting use of crafting abilities and some very interesting battle sequences in the novel, yes. There is potential in the core premise of the story. It's really just not realized. And part of that is the chosen writing style of the author, and the second part is a lack of actual character development in the novel. The core story essentially comes down to two things. The main character stops the bad guy a bad player named Seeker. In the first game world, he stops him from basic player killing people and making them start over. Then he's transported to a second game world that's apparently full immersion. And there, or a parallel past version of the game rather, it's never really explained how this occurs, but he has to try to stop that same Seeker from changing the game's past and thus affecting its future. Again, not a horrible premise, it just kind of falls flat for me. It's a lot of the story just feels like the main character going on random quests and introductions of various characters and people, without ever having the reader care about them. And including the main character. Like throughout the novel, I'm reading this, and I feel practically bored. Even though there's a lot of action there, I'm never really engaged in the novel, and I realize that about 50% through the story is that I don't care about anybody. I don't care about the main character, I don't care about the villain, I don't care about the world, I don't care about any of the characters they introduced. I don't know anything enough about anybody to really give a hoot whether they live or die or the whole world explodes. And I think that's probably the biggest issue. And that's not just the lack of character development. It's also the particular style that the author chose. He chose to write it in first person present, which normally makes you feel like you're there because there's a lot of descriptors about what's happening to the main character. Unfortunately, just the way that the author chose to write actually distances you from those actions, and that's unfortunate. And it just, when that occurs, it's just like I don't feel connected to the character, and I don't feel connected to his actions, and because that coupled with the lack of backstory or character development, just like I don't really care, and it felt like I was watching somebody play a video game on YouTube, which was a bunch of action commentary, a bunch of descriptions, a bunch of character logs and item descriptions, all the game mechanic stuff was very thorough. I'm not saying it's not. And the game world itself is really well set up and well thought out, great, but I didn't care about it anyway. So unfortunately for me, it just didn't land. Overall, the story just kind of meant for me, and that's just me. I know I read other reviews online. Other people really enjoyed the series and the novel, I should say, and they liked it. It's just, for me, it just fell super flat, unfortunately. And even though there's a nice sci-fi twist and premise towards the end, it just wasn't enough to redeem for me. So unfortunately, it gets a score of 5 out of 10 for me. Okay, on to Venia Online, a LitRPG Saga written by A.E. Eagle. So there you go. This is 261 pages, $3.99. It is not available on Kindle Unlimited, unfortunately. So let me read you the author's description. What would you do if you woke up in a strange world which has 3 moons? What if you had no memory of how you got there? What would you do upon realizing that you are in a world manifests itself to you in the form of a video game? The world of Venia promises action, adventure, mystery, intrigue, and danger at every turn. With the Dread King rising, the knights tired of fighting, the rogues resorting to kidnapping, and the mages rapidly declining, it's up to a modern-day young man to navigate through this mad world of magic and beast and deception, whether he wants to or not. So there you go. That's the author's description. I think that the page count, 261 pages, is a little off. This felt like a much shorter story to me, but that's a secondary concern. The main character wakes up in this world. He doesn't know who he is. But he finds that he's on a strange planet with RPG mechanics, which is basically trapped in the game story. However, he accesses his character sheet from like a tattoo on his palm with like an X1 or an 11. And so there's a ton of game mechanics there. So that's legitimate there. The one unique thing about the character, though, is the fact that he respawns. He has the ability to respawn once per day at the last save point that he had if he dies. So if he dies, he can respawn, but he also keeps all the foreknowledge of what led to his death. And this lets him redo situations and redo fights with the foreknowledge of future events. So there's a little bit of time traveliness in here, but it's more like reloading to a backup save, in which case you remember everything though. And if that sounds really familiar to you, if you're familiar with an anime series, that's because it is. You've probably read this before. If you've ever read or watched Re:Zero, it's the exact same premise, except that this world has a lot more RPG mechanics present in it. That world was very much fantasy oriented, but he has like this one game power. This one, he has the game power of like respawning, but he also has a bunch of other abilities and skills he can learn, including like magic and regular melee and rogue skill combats and classes and levels and all that good stuff in there. But if you've ever watched or read that series of Re:Zero, a lot of the plot points are going to feel very, very, very familiar. Save the princess, fight the big bad evil dude, use your respawn ability to survive death-defying situations or redo bad choices. All that is really present here. Now, beyond the main character's ability to respawn, there's really not a ton that's really super special about the story. Again, the story isn't bad, and if you've never read that series or seen that anime, Re:Zero, this is going to feel fresh and new because it's new to you. But that series and that anime has an emotional depth to it as a consequence of actually feeling every single death, that was really cool and unique. And this one, by comparison, doesn't. Not that this is bad at all. It's just that because I've seen that other series that does this better, this one suffers. But if you haven't seen that at all, if you haven't seen Re:Zero, I would say you're probably going to like this. It's probably going to be a rather good story for you. But for me, it didn't have the same flair. It didn't have anything that made it stand out beyond that one mechanic. And so for me, it's not bad again. It's just never hit good. It gets a score of 6 out of 10. So there you go. Okay, on to Infinite Reality Daggerland Online, Novel 1, a LitRPG adventure, written by Peter Meredith. So there we go. It is 385 pages. It is $4.99. It is available on Kindle Unlimited. I'll read you the author's description. 100 million online players with thousands of choices, but everyone knows there's only one game, infinite reality. When a judge declares it a monopoly, the co-creators become competitors and then very quickly become murder victims, with one thing in common: they were all online when they died. Everything points to the sole surviving creator, Atticus Arching. When the FBI can't find Arching in the real world, they send Agent Daniel Roan and his team to the other side to track him down, only to find out that the game is more than just a game, and Arching is more than just a computer programmer. He's the most dangerous person in two worlds and can kill them both. It's a very lofty premise. And for the most part, it does fulfill on what it's saying it's there. Some of it, not so much. Okay, again, 385 pages, $4.99 available, Kindle Limited. Nice price point. We can't complain about that at all. The story really does start as a thriller detective story with the VR theme. Someone gets killed while playing a virtual reality game, one of the developers. And then the FBI sends a cybercrime team into the full immersion of VR game to catch the killer. And the story turns into kind of a more standard fantasy VR adventure run. The story has a lot of key moments, I have to say. Rowan, who's the main character, he learns to trust his horse, which is a very cute scene. Has conversations with his pet air elemental who summons. There's a lot of great banter between him and his team. There's even some romance between him and another character, not another dude, don't worry. However, the novel, what kind of drops the novel from being like good or even great, is kind of an unfulfilled promise, or just like unfulfilled expectations. Because even from the author's description and from the beginning of the novel, there's a expectation of this being a thriller or a LitRPG detective story, and that unfortunately is not really ever fulfilled. I mean, it's sort of fulfilled, but like really late in the game. But I'll talk about the thing that I really enjoyed of the story. Okay, the first 5% of the novel, I have to say, great. Like, if that's all you read, this is good. Like, this is a really good setup. And I've read a few of these thriller LitRPGs, detective LitRPGs, and I have to say, this is probably the best setup I've read yet. And it's a really good setup for a LitRPG thriller or again, a LitRPG detective story. It's really kind of good enough to have been like the opening part of a Law and Order episode, like one of the good seasons. So I really did like the opening as a really great hook that pulls you right in. Then after that, though, things start to devolve, unfortunately. There's a ton of like weird, like not logical justifications as to why the killer can't be caught in the real world. Like a bunch of techno stuff that doesn't make sense. But the author really does make the attempt to kind of convince you that, oh no, these guys, no, they have to go in the game to find the bad guy, and that's the only way they can do it, I promise. That's what it feels like. And if you can accept that, then, it's not bad. For me, I was a little on the fence. I'm like, that seems like you're stretching things out. But you know what? Okay, I'll go along with it because you had such a good opening. Then the next 60% of the novel just kind of felt bland by comparison. Like, it wasn't bad by any means. But compared to that great opening, this felt very standard. It's a combination of the FBI team being killed again and again and again, and having to like re-roll their characters until they figure out that they have to like be serious about playing the game, and not just like roll characters randomly with random stats and try to go through the world and try to find the bad guys, and them kind of exploring the game world, trying to find clues vaguely, but mostly just going in adventures, helping people, creating connections to NPCs, and kind of developing relationships, leveling up, learning how the characters work and things like that. At the 61% mark is kind of when it returns vaguely, even to like the FBI detective story, and the plot sort of advances when like the main characters are almost assassinated in game, and a character they'd met before reappears suddenly in game to try to threaten them and try to scare them away from the game world. Otherwise, they're gonna get it in the real world, and they actually do. So there's a really nice twist at the 63% mark that I was like, oh my god, I can't believe the author actually did that. And so for that little piece alone, that was a nice little twist. But again, there is, from that point on, from the 60% mark on, there's some really clear progression in the novel, but it happens so late, and it takes such a long time to get that it kind of drags it down from being good for me. And mostly, like I said, mostly it's a good story. It just had a great beginning, but it just took too darn long to get back to the checklist thriller stuff, which was promised at the very beginning of the novel. And even then, when it does sort of get back to it, it's not really detective and it's not really thriller, so it is not really fulfilling. And it gets a score of 6 out of 10 from me. So there you go. That's it. We're done. Finished. Thank you very much, everybody. You can follow us on Facebook and Twitter, YouTube, Patreon, and of course, check us out on all those other places. If you join the podcast, you want to support us, you can also find us all the ways to do so at LitRPGpodcast.com/support. Thanks again for hanging out with me. And until we can hang out again, remember, folks, to go read some LitRPG. Thank you very much, and hope to see you next week. Bye, everybody.